How's it going, folks? Welcome to Like Minded Lunatics. I'm Mark.
I'm Ladi. Yay! What's going on?
Not
Who's
much.
this guy?
We got David Marino
David.
here. So,
Yeah.
David, you have a television show on Austin Music T.V. You've got a YouTube channel. Tell folks what you do.
Yeah, I interview different people, mainly horror related, because I love scary movies. So I'll interview actors, creatives here locally. Anything horror related, movie related, pop culture. So
It's a great show,
Yeah.
and like I said, like you said, you've got a lot of behind the scenes stuff with actors from really great films, like some of the Friday the 13th stuff.
Friday
and
the
things.
13th. and-
So, folks, please go check all that out. I'll put David's information in the description here. So, Ladi, do you know what we're doing today?
What is this? Is this a Rockucation?
It's a Ladi's Rockucation.
Rockucation is where Mark and apparently David today, they exposed me to music that I don't normally listen to in my regular life so that I can expand the things I hear. And so far, it's been pretty good.
So today we're actually going to dive into what I would consider to be the heart of the grunge movement. So we've done, by this time this airs, we've looked at L7.
And I loved L7.
Oh, L7.
And I think you were actually kind of shocked at the sound, because I think, what was your conception of grunge before we started listening to stuff?
I was thinking about this. You know what grunge sounds like? Grunge sounds, just the word, it sounds like if you're in the bathroom and you pull out that stopper from the sink.
Yes.
And all that stuff that's underneath, the hair, the soap, scum, that's grunge. So that's what it feels like this music was going to sound like. And it didn't.
It didn't, no. And I think I told you in the L7 video, the people who were considered grunge players, they didn't come up with that term. They didn't like that term. That was a marketing term that was used to sell albums. So they thought that they were either post-punk or just heavy metal.
Post-punk would have been a wonderful name.
And a lot of the chord progressions and stuff like that are. But whenever I talk to my students about the grunge movement, what I usually try to describe is that it really is the voice of Gen X. Whereas the heavy metal and rock and roll that we would have listened to in the 80s, that would have been written by folks that were born in the 50s, that was born in the late 40s sometimes even. And so while we enjoyed it, it wasn't the voice of our generation. And the grunge movement is the first time that Gen X has a real voice in the pop culture. And we wouldn't even see this voice happen in movies until several years later with Richard Linklater's Slacker, Kevin Smith's Clerks,
Reality Bites,
Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. Like, it would even take a little bit more time to get to it there.
Dazed and Confused.
But it starts happening in the late 80s, and this movement in Seattle starts building. And it's a reaction to what would later be called cock rock. So like Poison and Motley Crue, it's all about getting laid. So this was a reaction to that. And it was a reaction by Gen X who felt betrayed by the system. And what I always tell my students is that the musical hero of the boomers, John Lennon, he was, for his audacity of thinking there's nothing but love, he was shot by a crazy man. The voice piece of our generation, the existential angst was so heavy on him, he shot himself. And so that is something that I think really colors our generation, is a sense of, well, pop culture is really all we have because the system has betrayed us. And so much of the lyrics are about that. The other thing that I think you should know is that it all started in Seattle with one record label called Sub Pop, S-U-B-P-O-P. And Sub Pop found all of these artists. So like Nirvana and Mudhoney and Mudbone, like all these different ones, they found them. And this is the one we're gonna listen to is Come As You Are. This comes off of Nirvana's second album, Nevermind. And for my money, I think this describes our generation better than anything I've ever heard.
I'm just going to say this. You just made me very sad already. Oh my God.
Our generation is very sad.
It is, yes. Gen X is, yes.
Very sad.
Very sad.
All right, folks, here we go. Come As You Are by Nirvana.
As a friend, as a
stop there before we get to this breakdown. What are you thinking so far?
The music is such happy little music. He's so sad, though.
It is. So the lyrics, for my money, these are some of the most interesting lyrics ever, because every line of poetry here is a contradiction in terms. So the first line is, come as you are, as you were. So we've got past tense and present tense. That's a contradiction. You can't do that. As I want you to be, as a friend, as an old enemy. So are you a friend or are you an enemy? Take your time. No, hurry up. The choice is yours, but don't be late. Take a rest, as a friend, as an old memory. This is what I mean about the lyrics kind of representing the miasma of Gen X. You know, we were taught we can be everything we want to be, but then we have to take out loans that destroy us.
Can I ask you a question? How come those aren't just building up phrases on each other? How come it's not take your time, hurry up and take your time? How come you're not looking at it that way? How come you're looking at it, don't be late? The choice is yours. How come you don't look at it as if it's that way, as opposed to they're diametrically opposite, but they're building on each other? Because to me, come as you are means come as you are as you always were. So it's the same thing.
Maybe it's because I'm burned out.
Well, it's also,
I'm still hopeful.
But it's also
Then I'm bitter and broken.
no. But I think it's also that it's Kurt Cobain. So
Sure.
I mean, Kurt Cobain, like, I don't think he would think of it that. I think what you're saying is how he meant it.
I don't know.
Yeah,
As
it's
you
hard
say,
to.
once
everybody
the art
can-
has left the artist.
Everybody
Yeah.
interprets it different. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I've always loved about this song is that it's one of the most inclusive songs that I think from this time period. And Nirvana was an extremely inclusive band, which might actually shock you a little bit. So this is the early 90s when homophobia was really bad. Like every piece of media that was every comedy from the late 80s and early 90s, there's stuff you either have to ignore or you can't watch anymore.
all
'Cause
joke.
It just doesn't play.
Yeah.
But in 1992, when this came out, Kurt Cobain was already kind of making his voice known about supporting the LGBT community. And in 1992, they released an album called Insecticide. Now, Insecticide wasn't a compilation album of songs that didn't make it on their first album, but this is after Nevermind had hit, so they were already really huge, and they were starting to get a lot of audience members that Kurt didn't like. And so this is in the liner notes of that album, of Insecticide. At this point, I have a request for our fans. If any of you in any way hate homosexuals, people of different color, women, please do this one favor for us. Leave us the fuck alone. Don't come to our shows and do not buy our records. 92 is when I was in high school, in the middle of nowhere. And seeing stuff like that from people who I thought was like, what? There's something greater out there that I don't understand. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And it was impactful. It was impactful.
What happened with that? Was there a lot of blowback to him? Did he get, as they call now, canceled? Because
No.
I don't remember Nirvana ever being canceled. In fact, I feel like they were
Celebrated for it.
celebrated.
well, what about the people who he was trying to get rid of? They didn't complain. They didn't come out and go on what's his name, Bill O'Reilly, and say this guy's. I mean,
Oh, for sure. There was that in the media. So, like, talking heads, I do remember that. Like, news people were like, oh, this new movement is hypersexualized or whatever. That whole thing, the corruption of the youth that's been going on since Socrates' time. But like my generation, no, I think it hit us different because we have this voice who's talking about how we're all screwed, how we should all be in this together. And it just seemed to make sense.
And I think our generation, too, at that time, like if you're younger, you're trying to come to terms with being okay with who you are in a world that didn't accept you. And at that time in history, the conversation was starting to be had more about accepting people, and it was getting a bigger, a larger light was shining on it. And even within the punk community, you hear these stories of there being bisexual,
100%,
gay,
yeah.
But it was something that was also frowned upon. And what he's doing is shining a light on, look,
Yes.
we represent everybody, because he knew, like, our group of fans is made up of, he probably saw it in the audience, made up of all these different people.
Well, and that was the thing too that I was going to say, is that their music was really appealing to a lot of people like myself who felt like outsiders. And so people who would have been pissed off about this, that wasn't the group that he was talking to.
What I think is interesting about this is that I know we're of different generations, but I think as an old gay person, the outsider thing was always there.
Sure.
Had I listened to this, even then, when I was older, this would have been intriguing to me.
Really?
Because this is the way every gay person my age has ever felt. I mean, they always felt that they didn't. It's the way they were.
Right.
It's the way anyone who's any child of an interracial marriage would have felt. Mm-hmm. They're all the outsiders. They don't belong. But I think just because of the nature of what I thought this music was, I never even listened to it. I was like, I don't.
It's not for me.
Does anyone playing Captain and Tennille somewhere? Can I look for that?
I'm
big Captain and Tennille fan.
I am a big.
Were you devastated when they divorced?
I was very sad for them. But when he got sick, she took care of him till he died. So regardless of what happened, love really did keep them together.
Oh, that's sweet. All right, back into it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Come down the mud, soaked in bleach, as I want you to be. As a trend, as a friend, as I know memory.
One of the things that we haven't really talked about is the aesthetic of the video itself. One of the things that I've always liked about this video is that there's never a really good framing of Kurt, Chris, or Dave Grohl. It's all these like shattered images like we're looking at now with Kurt's face is kind of spliced in half, or he's in shadow, kind of obscured. So much of the rock at this time was all about, look at me! You know, it was a time of Motley Crue and Poison, dudes that are like...
It's vanity.
Yeah. Whereas this, they're in the back, or their images are shattered.
I want to add, because the one thing, because I do know certain things about historically, so I know he killed himself. So how long before that was this? Because this is the first thing that was jarring to me is the fact that it opens with the gun right there.
It's about to get... Hold on to that thought.
Okay.
Hold on to that thought. We're about to get to the solo, but yeah, so the last part, the last refrain is simply Kurt singing, I don't have a gun. Now, at the time when this came out, I do remember the news reports more about violence, like gun violence and things like that. But after Kurt then takes his own life, with a gun no less, these lines do take on, I think, a greater significance.
Yeah, they do.
And haunting significance in this video, with the gun floating in water, and then Kurt wailing out in just a moment, no, I don't have a gun. I love the thing he's doing with his throat there. When he sings Memory, he does this weird thing where he goes up in like an octave. He's memory, like he does this thing. It's always been haunting.
just have to say, I'm having a conflict here because I really want to dance to this music. And then I feel I'm starting to dance, and I'm thinking, you shouldn't be dancing to this. This is really sad.
It is. It's interesting, the juxtaposition between kind of the grooviness of the music and then obviously the heaviness, the existential heaviness of the lyrics. It's weird, right?
Yeah.
It's a real, like I said, it's a real contradiction in just the music.
So was this is this a big song?
Huge. Yeah. So off of this album, Smells Like Teen Spirit's probably the biggest, but this is probably right number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a gun.
Wow. I forgot to put this on because you didn't tell me everyone was going to be wearing hats.
Oh no, it was another hat episode.
And you didn't tell me everyone had to wear them backwards, but I'm just not going to do that because I look so stupid with the backwards hat.
That's not true. That's not true. It looks great.
No, I look ridiculous. Someone my age wear back straight. Once you get a certain age, hats go forward.
I'm glad I'm not there yet.
I don't know why. I think it's in case we fall down.
That's true.
That way we have something to land on.
So
this was amazing to me. I'm still sad because I still want to dance to this, and I feel sad dancing while someone is so sad. It's like having your best friend tell you how depressed they are, and you're just going like this right around them. It
is like Semi-Tron kind of life.
You can't feel good about that, but the music is really catchy, and I feel so bad for this human.
Yes.
And I haven't seen this video in a while, but like seeing it today, like you just admire the genius of them even more, you know, as an older adult now, like looking back. And you don't, like, this is so creative, so artistic. You don't see a lot of videos like this anymore. And so looking at it now, it really jolted me because it's not polished, it's not pretty.
No. And
even the videos nowadays that try to be a little edgy, it's not this. So this was really in a league of its own, and to watch it all these years later, I haven't seen this in years, it just really speaks to their talent and their artistic, like, just what they did at that time. It's so much more appreciated now.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. And I do remember, you know, so like the thing with his voice that I was talking about. You know, apparently during this time period, Kurt started having problems with his voice because he was not trained as a musician, like at all, like just self-taught stuff, especially singing. And Dave Grohl said that he started having trouble with his voice, started blowing it out. He was scratching it up too much and things like that. So he started going to voice coaches that the studio was paying for to try to help him mend it and that type of stuff. And Grohl said that he came back from one of the sessions and he had a tape. And Kurt was like, listen to what they want me to do. And it was kind of like a singing exercise, like la, 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 like that type of stuff. And he said, we all sat around, we laughed at it, and we threw it away. And to me, that just speaks to kind of the ethos behind Kurt. Like, his candle burned at both ends. And there's only so long you can sustain that. Unsustainable.
Yeah.
And that's what I've said kind of about our generation. Like some of these singers from that generation, I feel like there's only so long you can run with your emotional meter all the way up to 12 before something bad happens. And we lost Scott Weiland, we lost Kurt Cobain, we lost Chris Cornell, we lost Lane Staley, we lost so many people from that time period who were renowned for writing these really deep existential lyrics. And I just feel like there's only so long you can sustain it.
Well, thank you for bringing us all down.
I know! What a wrap up. Put your hat on backwards. There we go. That's a way to end it. David, this is your first Ladi's Rockucation.
Yes,
what do you think?
I loved it. And I love learning along, because I don't know. I mean, you have an extensive knowledge of all. Like, I listened to Nirvana, but not to the same extent that you did or know all the history. So hearing it, it's so fascinating to learn these different things about what was happening at that time.
Yeah.
You know, especially with the voice. I didn't know that he had struggled with his voice.
Yeah, and if you listen to him, there's a reason why. Like, he does all that scratchy stuff.
He does.
And there's only so long you can do that. Like, apparently there are a bunch of techniques you can do to kind of mitigate the damage, but he's frying his voice out. He's literally starting to shred his vocal cords. There's only so long you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say this.
Go ahead.
This makes me feel like John Travolta and Sandy from Grease. Who were playing high schoolers when they were both 35 and 38. I cannot put on my hat backwards. My hat has to go on forwards. I don't know why. I can't help it.
It's like the Steve Buscemi meme. Hello, my fellow high school students. And he's carrying the skateboard. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. David, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you for
Enjoyed
coming.
it. It's great.
Ladi, I hope you enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it. I like this. You did good.
Good. All right, folks. Let us know in the comments what you think. What are your memories of Nirvana? What are your memories of that time period? We would love to see that stuff. Take care of yourself, folks, and we'll see you soon.
Adios.
Hey there, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed this Ladi's Rockucation as much as we enjoyed filming it. Please make sure you check out the Ladi's Rockucation playlist. We've got a ton of content there, and all the episodes are fantastic. Also, please make sure you go check out David Marino's show, either on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or if you can watch it live on Austin Music T.V. He would greatly appreciate your support. Now, let's see if we can do a little bit of Come As You Are. I don't know if we can or not, but let's just see.